So in today's video, I want to talk about how to use the OpenCloud to clean up your Gmail. The first step is to install the Gmail CLI and verify it. So the official GOG set, which is the Gmail helper set, it suggests us to install the GOG CLI via the homebrew. So before requesting any Gmail access, we have to inspect the Google authorization state, which is the highest leverage, the next move, because GOG cannot authorize us an account until an OAuth client credentials have been sorted, and the GOG authorization list will tells us whether any saved account token are already valid. So that lets us branch the clearly instead of just getting right. So if there's no credential, then we just stored a desktop app or auth.json. If credential but there's no account, then we just run the GOG authorization ad. And if we already have the valid account already present, then we just move directly to a Gmail operation. So GOG needs a Google Cloud Desktop app, which is the OAuth client JSON once, and the OpenCloud Gmail setup expects the Google Cloud Platform project that owns the OAuth client to be selected with the Google Cloud. So before we create or import any credential, we have to verify the Google Cloud CLI state from the terminal. And we must first establish the three facts like whether the Google Cloud is installed, or whether we have signed in, or whether a project is already active. So as we can see here, the Google Cloud is the missing prerequisite. So on the macOS, the Google's current homebrew uses the command to brew install the required Google Cloud Desktop app, which is the OAuth client JSON, before the Gmail authorization can proceed. So we have to install the Google Cloud CLI from the terminal. So this step restores the tooling layer that is needed for our next authorization setup step. And then, in the next dependency step, the Google Cloud initialize both authorizes the CLI and set the active project as no launch browser, keep the flow terminal driving by printing a URL instead of just alternately opening a browser. So that's why we need the project selected before we creating the Google Cloud Desktop app, the OAuth client JSON that the GOG later will import with the GOG authorization credentials. And then let's finish the OAuth checkpoint for the command that is already running. So Google requires a browser-based consent screen to mint the login token. So we just open the URL, sign in to the Google account that's on the Gmail inbox, and then we just copy the verification code and paste it into the same terminal prompt. And once you finished, we just enter the verification code that's provided in our browser, and then just press enter. So in today's video, let's try to set up a Gmail API that requires a Google Cloud project. So rather than just selecting an existing project, so before we enabling the Gmail API, we have to create a new project with a clear name, which is OpenCloud Gmail Cleanup. So that is a very fresh project. It is a cleaner choice, here, because it isolated this OpenCloud Gmail workflow from the unrelated API credentials and consent setting, Let's try to enable the Gmail API in the project that we have just created. This is the capability gating step, and we are going to define the project's usable action surface before we add any credentials. The APIs must be enabled in the current cloud project, and then our second command will verify that enable the operation is actually landed instead of just assuming it is success. So the cleanest terminal driving move is to open the exact page for our current project. We open the exact Google Authorization Platform client page for our active project from the terminal. And when you see, Google Authorization Platform is not configured yet. So the first step required action is get started. And then we fill the app name and the user support email and then continue. So this creates the consent screen metadata that we needed before we can create the desktop or OAuth client later. As you can see for my personal Gmail account here, the internal is generally only for the Google Workspace organization users. So if internal is not appropriate or unavailable, we should choose the external. In the testing mode, then the app is limited to the users that you explicitly add later as the test users. That is the correct choice for one user OpenCloud Gmail workflow. As Google's current credential flow for the local terminal tools, it says the next object we need is an OAuth client on Google Authorization Platform. So on the OAuth overview page, we click create clients, and on the next form, we choose the application type, which is the desktop app, because for a Mac terminal workflow, the correct client type is the desktop app, not the web application, right? So, and then we say the name to OpenCloud Gmail Cleanup, and then we click create. So after creation, Google will show the client entry and let you download the all-auth.json that GeoG will import later. And then we try to create the desktop all-auth.json locally and then load it into the GeoG. So GeoG Quick Start expects a Google desktop app, the all-auth client JSON, and then we import it with the GeoG auth credentials since we already have the client ID and the secret on our screen. So the terminal only step recreates that JSON locally and stores it into the GeoG's credential store. Now let's try to repair the all-auth.json so it contains the real desktop client values, not the placeholders. So this is a failure prevention step. The GeoG Quick Start expects the downloaded Google desktop app, the all-auth.json, and then the GeoG auth credentials imported. So our previous file appears to contain the literal placeholder string, which the GeoG can store without proving they are valid. So the later browser auth could fail for no obvious reason. As we can see here, the previous Python approach failed because that form feeds the script through the standard input, so it cannot also prompt you interactively. So we have to edit the all-auth.json directly in the terminal. We have to replace only these two placeholder values with the real Google authorization platform values, and we save with Ctrl+O, and then press enter, and then we exit with Ctrl+X, and then we have to verify that there's no placeholders remain in the GeoG expects a real downloaded desktop all-auth client JSON before the account authorization. So this step repairs the credential context clearly. And then we trim the hidden white space and then re-import the corrected desktop all-auth client into the GeoG. So our client ID currently has a training space which can invalidate the all-auth matching. So the GeoG expects a valid desktop app, which is all-auth client JSON, and after we correcting the local file, we must import it again. So the GeoG stored the default credentials that are updated before our account authorization. So on the Google Cloud page for our project OpenCloud Gmail Cleanup, we open Audience because our all-auth app is external and is still testing. So Google only allows listed the test users. To complete the authorization, we go to the test users and we click Add Users, add my Gmail account as the test users in the Google authorization platform, because adding my own Gmail here is the cleanest failure prevention move before we run in GeoG authorization add email. And then we just stop using manual mode and let the GeoG capture the callback automatically. So the official GeoG Quick Start says our browser flow is the default and the manual is only for the headless cases. So our failure was not the open authorization itself. It was the fragile path that's backstep in manual. So the no manual commands starts a localhost callback flow. So after we approve the browser, the GeoG should receive the token automatically without any paste or control D steps like that. So in today's video, let's try to use the OpenCloud to archive the Gmail's verified promotional set in the blog. It is very conservative because it doesn't delete, trash, or unsubscribe or mark spam. It only removes the inbox placement for the already validated query, and this archive just matching the thread by removing the inbox label. So this will just repeat the same conservative action until there's no matches remain, and it finishes the same save and archive rules in repeated batches until the search is empty. We pick the account context and take a read-only inbox snapshot. So before any agentic cleanup, we make the target account explicit, so later the commands do not draft to another token, right? And then we inspect the inbox state without modifying anything. It's just the GeoG supports the account selection via the GeoG account, and the GeoG Gmail labels get the inbox.json, which includes the label counts, and the GeoG Gmail search the filter emails in the inbox that are unread. So this is the documented read or search path that we will use to design the cleanup prompts and workflows. And then let's try to create the agent's cleanup policy file in terminal. So this is the context engineering, and our sample inbox is dominated by the promotions and newsletters. So before we give to the agents any agency, we have to define the explicit goal like constraints and heuristics, so that can reduce the draft and prevent any catastrophic actions. We are not clean up yet, right? We just specify the decision policy, and that agent will follow later. And then we inject the inbox cleanup rules into the OpenCloud's always loaded agents context. So this is the key context engineering move. The OpenCloud injects the agent door markdown into every session. So placing the cleanup policy there makes it part of the agent's default operating instruction rather than one of the prompt. So this is the robust and is a more agentic way than just parsing the rule ad hoc each turn. So before we send any prompt, we have to enumerate the configured agent ID so that we can discover the valid OpenCloud agent ID. And now let's try to target configured agent explicitly. So before any cleanup, we have to run a read-only audit through the OpenCloud. So the OpenCloud's agent CLI executes one agent turn, and its prompt is built from bootstrapped context, such as agent.md plus our pretend messages. So this combines a very stable policy with a very nano dry run task. There's no Gmail changes that are allowed it, right? As we all know, the GOG is explicitly supported Gmail search and message management, but the prudent agentic pattern is to verify the candidate search first and then mutate second. So before we making any inbox changes, we need to validate the block rule with GOG. So this lets you inspect whether the search is accidentally capture anything important before we archive in bump. So if the sample looks like very clean, right, then the next step is to actually archive the command. So after this very high volume batch action, we need an observability checkpoint before we design the next cleanup rule. So we have to measure the new inbox state, which is the current inbox total, and then we test whether this exact block rule is now extracted, which is the safest agentic pattern after mutation now.